So good evening, everyone. I think it was a fascinating day of lectures and panel sessions today. We certainly have heard about the demand that's going to show up in India, the support that you're going to get from various state governments and the central government in terms of being able to develop products in India. But today, I think from imagination's perspective, what I'd like to talk about a little is about how to actually address the execution gap when you want to develop new platforms, specifically about IP platforms, and probably expanding that into the favorite topic of IoT platforms. Talking about IP platforms, I'm going to leverage upon the experience that we have in imagination, in that we are uniquely positioned with having a phenomenal range of IP that we can bring together to create platforms. So an introduction to imagination, and then I'm going to talk about that experience into taking it forward into IP platforms, nuancing it a little, talking specifically about IoT platforms, and then saying how people can maybe quickly develop from prototypes to mid-volume kind of products, and then taking it to super high optimized efficient platforms, efficient chips. Yeah, a little about imagination. I'm sure quite a lot of you have heard about imagination either in the context of Power VR or MEPS, or by imagination itself. We are one of the 3 leading IP companies in the world, about $270, $280 million in revenue. We have IP pretty much in each of the major components of chips and SoCs that you see today in the market, whether it is graphics, where we've been leading the market, one of the leaders in the market for the last decade or so. We also own the MIPS line of processors. We acquired MIPS a few years back, and that ranges right from very low-end cores all the way up to high-end cores. Not just graphics and CPU, we also have state-of-art communications IP in what we call as radio processing cores. And this encompasses all the way from Bluetooth, low-power Wi-Fi, high-end Wi-Fi, so on and so forth. I'll talk a little more about that going forward. So we have about 1,700 employees worldwide, a strong presence in India with about 300 plus engineers here. And I think the unique thing that I'll talk a little today about is it's not just the IP, right? I think we've taken a major step forward being in this unique position, in that we've actually gone ahead and created platforms that makes it easy to help our customers create products easily. So a little more into some of our IP. I did mention about graphics. So when we say Power VR, it's graphics cores all the way from tiny embedded devices to the highest end phones and tablets and so on and so forth, so we can support the entire range, including, for example, automotive related requirements. But we also have state-of-art video cores all the way from legacy standards to HEVC and H.265. We also have image signal processing cores that are needed for processing the noisy signals that you get from cameras. So that's the whole Power VR category. I did talk about MEPS, which offers state-of-the-art ultra low power cores to very high performance cores as well. And Sigma I did mention earlier. We also have a range of other technologies. I mean, these are the technologies that are typical SoC IP. But we've gone a step forward and we said, hey, that's just not enough. We want to look at end-to-end systems. IoT is the buzzword. You need end-to-end systems. So we've created our what is called as a flow cloud service that provides all the software needed to build IoT kind of applications on our platforms. But not just that, we have all the server-side infrastructure, cloud services, etc., to actually bring the whole solution together. We also have some additional system-level technologies internally in imagination. One of them is OmniShield, which I'll talk a little more about later, which is about security. A lot of discussion has happened today on security. We have an end-to-end voice platform, and that becomes very important as some of the IoT devices start moving towards voice-enabled systems. And you must have heard about Amazon Echo, right? So we have all the technology, for example, to create an Amazon Echo or an end-to-end voice over IP service. And then we've put these things into neat little boards with IoT kits, and I'll describe a little more about it later. That's called Creator. And imagination also plays a little in the music area by virtue of having a customer-facing product line called Pure. And so we have some very neat technology and able to do ultra-synchronized music playout, multi-room speakers, and so on and so forth. So that's about the range of technologies we have in imagination. And what I want to talk about here is on this slide is that we have the three key pillars in terms of IP, which have been around, which are industry proven, mature, in terms of graphics, CPU, and communications. But we also have a layer on top of that, and we've actually crafted and created a range of platforms that put these things together. And this could be from ultra low power, low footprint kind of platforms for IoT or for other embedded devices, to all the way up to high-end platforms. Say if you want to create a tablet or you want to create an ADAS platform, you could actually do that. It's interesting, I think in one of the panel discussions earlier on automotive, there was a discussion about how to create design for flexibility, design for the future, in terms of being able to have standard platforms that you can very easily modify and customize to your requirements. I mean, platforms are great, right? But obviously, customers have to differentiate, they have to add their own value. So we are looking at, in imagination, a model where the platforms are available, but we work very, very closely with customers so that they can bring in their secret sauce, their IP, their algorithms, or whatever software they have, and we help them integrate it into these platforms. So initially, it could be that there is this custom platform available that they integrate with, but later on, they can refine it and tune it for mass production. And of course, it goes without saying that platforms are, I think, pretty much useless if you don't have the software that goes with it, which means the operating system support, protocol stack support for all the protocols that we have. And so that's essentially what we bring together at IMG. Just a snapshot of what we are doing in India. We have a couple of key customers in India using our range of IP blocks. One is Enida, and they have a pretty unique and interesting architecture for low-power IoT applications. And the other one is Signal Chip, who are a leader in communications IP, and they too are using our technology. So, talked a little about imagination, but now what is the real theme that we're talking about here? There is, I think, huge demand in the market for new products and variants. I think one of the panelists talked about variability, right? I mean, huge variability in the market. There is demand, and I think specifically in India, there is an environment that's being created to support innovation and new products. I think we heard that throughout the day. So the key is to be able to take these concepts and execute on it and very quickly come out to market, try out a few things, experiment, and then be able to take them to mass production without actually having to throw in boatloads of investment, create long SOC cycles, huge money being spent on fabricating them. So that's essentially the concept here that we want to talk about. How do you take concepts and very quickly turn them around into finished products in a whole range of areas that, again, we uniquely can support. So more on the same philosophy here. So we're talking about having IP blocks in a whole range of areas, but then being able to put this together in a range of platforms. Now, example platforms could be an IoT kind of a device where you need basic CPU processing. Of course, that could vary about how much of analytics you want to do at the device or at the sensor side of things or at the hub versus doing more on the cloud. So the compute could vary a little. And you need some kind of communication in it, right? Whether it's 6LoWPAN or BTLE or Wi-Fi of different flavors. So that is one piece. But then you can actually think about a very high-end platform that has high-end CPU in it, probably has a boatload of video processing, right from camera processing to graphics and codecs, and so on and so forth. So you get to what I'm saying. Now, these can be basic standard platforms, and pretty much most of the people in each of these niches or areas would actually do this. But then you can actually bring in something like a unique DSP or a unique signal processing block and easily share the costs of the platform across. The key point here is that this approach will actually allow you to create end SoCs and make it economical even at maybe hundreds of thousands of units or the few millions of units at the lower end. And because SoC costs have become so high, this approach actually now makes it economical, allows people to design them in time because you have a lot of verified IP, pre-tested, software running on stuff, very quickly take this to market. So this has worked out quite well. We actually have quite a few engagements in this model, one in India as well. So this is something to really think about. So shifting gears slightly to IP, but expanding on the same idea. So platforms in the context of IoT. We know that IoT is highly fragmented, various kinds of applications, a lot of buzz around it. But when you get down to the basics of it, at least we in Imagination think that you can slice it in a particular way, and that is basic data processing, as I described earlier, but then you can add a layer of voice on top of it. And voice-enabled applications is something that you need to watch out for. As I said, Amazon Echo is there. You all are familiar with Siri or Cortana or whatever. So going to be a lot of these applications where voice becomes the primary interface. So there's voice, and of course there's audio, the other side of it where you want to play music out, so on and so forth. So we think that is an interesting sweet spot of a platform, and we are creating something around that. And the next level is to add video to the capabilities. And video means can be arranged. You can have low form factor video going all the way up to 4K, 8K, whatnot. But again, that requires a completely different pipeline. And so we have a platform that's architected around video as well. So that's just talking about IoT. So you could actually look at readily available IoT platforms and very quickly put your stuff around it and innovate. But that's not the end of the story, and I alluded to this a little earlier. The chips alone are not good enough. If people want to try out new ideas and come to market quickly, you need boards, you need embedded software, you need protocol stacks, you need the server-side stuff. And in some cases, you also need Android, iOS, and Windows apps, right, to complete the solution. So if you're putting that entire story together, and we have working solutions of this right now, in probably a couple of months, we'll actually be able to give it out into the market and share it with customers. So pretty interesting concept. I'm not going through, I won't go through all the details there. And we support a range of wireless standards. We support standard services on the cloud, for example, registration, authentication, the CRUD, right, that everyone wants to do. And then we provide a platform where you can add your own apps, services on the cloud, the SaaS model.